HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
Hello, it's Wednesday. Welcome to the Heritage Radio Network's Farm Report. You're here with Heather from Heritage, Heather Hyman, and a special co-host today,
Patrick Martins.
And we're happy to be here on this beautiful Wednesday in New York. We've got 2 great people on the line with us today. We got David Haight of the American Farmland Trust, and we have Erin Fairbanks on the line with us today as well from Flying Pig Farm and from the American Farmland Trust. And we'd like to thank TechServe today for sponsoring today's program.
TechServe is New York's premier authorized Apple reseller and service provider, serving individual customers, creative professionals, and Fortune 100 companies, not just 500, 100. TechServe has built a solid reputation on its expertise in technology, sales, and service. As a company that believes in honest and forthright business practices, TechServe is proud to sponsor Heritage Radio Network in the promotion of sustainable lifestyles. To support sustainability in New York City, TechServe is holding an e-waste recycling drive Saturday, April 10th from 10 to 4 p.m. And their website is jacktechserve.com.
All right, so just about a little over a month ago, February 10th, we had David Haight from the American Farmland Trust on with us to talk a little bit about the rally that had just happened this past Monday up in Albany. It was called the No Food, No Farms Rally. David, No Farms, No Food Rally, that is. Sorry. David and Erin, are you here with us?
Hi, Heather.
Yes,
hi, Patrick.
Hey.
Hi, David.
How are you? It's great to be with you again.
Nice to have you back with us. So this has been a crazy week for you, I'm sure. You've got something big coming up tomorrow, and after last Monday, I can only imagine what you've got to tell us about how this rally went.
Well, it was just phenomenal. We had about 140 people come from literally almost every corner of New York, representing about 70 different organizations. We had chefs, we had farmers, we had environmentalists, people from food pantries, people from farm groups, local government officials. It was just a real melting pot.
Do you know if there was any slaughterhouse representatives there?
Excuse me?
Do you know if there was anyone from like a slaughterhouse there by any chance?
You know, we had a lot of people from different parts of the farm system
in learning more about that and opening one up, but they weren't currently working on that.
So what were the goals of the conference going in, and, do you think that the conference realized its goals? Like, what was the actual, what was the goal, of the best things that would happen if the conference went perfectly?
Well, the event was held at the state capitol, and we were really there together to send a message to lawmakers that farms and food need to be a priority in our state budget. Mm-hmm. What we've seen is that while farm and food programs that we were talking about represent less than 1% of the state budget, many of these programs were proposed to be completely eliminated. Others were proposed for very disproportionate cuts of more than 50%. So programs that support organic agriculture, farmers markets, protecting our farms from being developed, many of those types of programs are proposed for complete elimination in the governor's budget. So our goal was to send a unified message that farmers, consumers, people from across New York care about these issues, and they want to make sure that farms and food get a fair share of our state budget.
And how was the conference received? I mean, did you have an audience of some of the state officials? Did Governor Patterson, how did they react? What was the interaction between your event and the legislators?
Well, again, we had a real cross-section of folks, so people from groups like Just Food, New York City Green Markets, Slow Food New York City, groups like the Brooklyn Food Coalition, a number of food pantries, really came together. We're part of 14 different teams of participants that went and met with over 100 different state legislators to really send a unified message about the state budget. And Erin was one of the folks that was on one of those teams. So, Erin, I didn't know if you want to chime in about your experience as a participant.
Yeah, I would say I don't know if I got put on an easy team, but I met with 7 different legislators, and across the board, I feel like people were really responsive to the message that we had to bring. The assemblymen and the assemblywomen asked really great questions and gave us some opportunities to, bring them some more information and follow up with more stuff about the budget priorities that American Farmland Trust had put together as far as what items specifically we were talking to them about that day. I was surprised. I was surprised by how responsive all the legislators were. It was great. It was really invigorating. And I know everyone in my group, at the end of the day, there was like a round of high fives. It felt like we had really accomplished something, and that we were building momentum as everyone went into, looking at the budget and where we're going to make cuts and where we're going to restore things. I felt like we really brought our A game and our A team and sent a good message, like David said.
Good. That was a good answer. Awesome, Erin. I also had one last question, then I'll throw it back to Heather. But do you think Governor Patterson's, troubles is a good thing in a way for something sustainable like this? Or do you think it's a deterrent from him being able to pay attention to these important issues?
Ooh, Patrick, tough question.
There's a lot swirling in Albany right now that it's hard to really put your finger on exactly how it affects these issues. I will say that the state of New York is in a real difficult fiscal situation, and I think we went to Albany knowing that. Our message, though, was that when you invest in our farms and when you invest in a homegrown food supply, we get a stronger state economy, we get a healthier environment, and we get nutritious food in the hands of more New Yorkers. And that the bang for the buck essentially we're talking about $100 million for 11 different programs, that the benefit of those programs is so great compared to the cost that it was just so compelling that we needed to make these investments. So regardless of what's going on with the governor or with the Senate or with the Assembly or any of the individual members, that this just made such sense for New York now. So I think it was very well received, and we're starting to see the state Senate already take action on that. And they released their budget resolution on Monday and took us up on a number of the things we were there talking about and proposed to restore a number of the funding cuts that were proposed by the governor.
Oh, the rally worked. That's awesome.
Wow. So I was going to ask, what's the next step then?
Well, as I said, the Senate came out with their budget resolution on Monday. The State Assembly is, marked to do the same today, and then we're going to be in the budget negotiation process. I think for listeners, the most important thing they could do, if they weren't able to join us in Albany for the No Farms, No Food rally, is to join thousands of other New Yorkers in a call-in day tomorrow to the state legislature, really calling for a restoration of our state's Environmental Protection Fund, which is a $222 million fund that provides critical funding to help protect our farmland from being developed and help our farmers keep our drinking water clean. So if people are interested in learning more about that, they can go to www.farmland.org. ffstate.org/New York.
Yep, and you've got the phone numbers for the Senator John Sampson in his Albany office and his district office in Brooklyn, as well as Assemblyman Sheldon Silver as in his Albany office and district office in New York as well.
Mm-hmm. So I was just at a conference in upstate New York, a CADE conference, and it was a really good conference. And I wanted to ask both of you your opinion on this. Do you think there's a disconnect between Manhattan and all of its, population density and the rest of the state of New York? Or is there less of a disconnect than we think? And, if so, why? What is the separation between city and state?
I'll start with that. That's something that definitely came up in our team meetings at the rally. And one of the things, my group was pretty diverse. We had farmland protection people from Dutchess County. I was there representing Flying Pigs Farm and Farm Camp food professionals. We had people from over in Troy who work on the Regional Farm and Food Project. We had a number of farmers, and we also had a representative from the Culinary Institute of America. And I think the themes that we kept coming back to is that we have a real strong opportunity for partnership between our urban and our rural centers, and a real need to work together. And I think that really came through in the fact that we had a bus full of, I think it was 35 people come up from New York City, from a number of different organizations who came to the rally and were kind of the urban partners with a lot of groups who came from more rural areas. And we just kept harkening back to the agriculture in New York State has this great opportunity. They have this big kind of hungry beast of a city, New York City, that needs to be fed, that wants to be fed. And so it's exciting to think about all the opportunities in ag to get more food down to New York City and keep more food, in New York State.
David, why isn't it yet? I mean, you would think that, of course, the most logical food supply for a city would be its closest place. Like, what is it? Do you think it's in the distribution and the interest in retail outlet issues? Like, have you thought at all about what part of that issue you would tackle first?
Well, I just want to echo what Erin was saying about the connections that was made at the No Farms, No Food rally between participants. We got a lot of email after the event. One of the ones that I still get a chill going down my spine is from a dairy farmer in central New York, sent to somebody from a Brooklyn food organization, saying, I always thought that people in New York City didn't care about where their food came from and cared about the issues of facing us in the countryside. And the dairy farmer was saying, I got tears in my eyes, being able to connect with you on these issues and hear some of the things you were saying. So I think some of those personal stories were just so compelling that came out of the No Farms, No Food rally.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty much...
But go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, you ask a great question. I think more and more of us are starting to see signs that people are interested in steering back to the local food shed. I think the Manhattan Borough President's report that came out, a few weeks ago, Food NYC, is probably the most recent indication of really the intense passion that people in Manhattan and New York City more broadly care and share on these issues. And quite frankly, I think many of our farmers would love to connect more directly with their consumers. And so I have tremendous optimism that these barriers can be overcome. At the rally, we were really talking about some programs that can help push us in that direction.
Yeah, and I would say people also, there's an environmental component to a rally like that because, when you lose farmland, you lose, carbon dioxide, greenness, grass, soil, there are a lot of things that are components of an ecosystem. So there's a big environmental component to that rally. And do we have to take a break? Is that what
maybe
Jackson?
We could take a short break and come back and talk about some of the things that you were discussing up at the rally and how we're going to be able to move forward with some of these ideas.
That's good.
We'll be right back. And we're back with the Heritage Farm Report, Wednesdays live at 5. Brought to you this week by TechServe. You're here with Heather from Heritage and Patrick Martins.
TechServe is holding an e-waste recycling drive Saturday, April 10th from 10 to 4 p.m.
All right. That's on actually West 23rd Street in Manhattan if you're in the area. So we've got Erin Fairbanks on the phone with us and David Haight, who just participated and had a big hand in the No Farms, No Food rally up in Albany this past Monday, March 15th. And I wanted to ask, Erin, you said you had a team, about 7 people, and you were talking about some ideas, and you felt that they were really well taken. But do you feel like they were kind of just yesing you, or do you really feel like they're going to come back and ask for your advice even further as to how they can help move some of these ideas you brought to the table along?
That's a great question, and that's something we definitely discussed amongst our group. We were wondering, are we getting the political, yes to your face and the turnaround, and, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to come out of this. And I think, what our team really felt like we were bringing our best game forward. We were giving them lots of information, and that was one part of our work that day. And then what happened after that day, I think, and what will continue to happen to build on the momentum of that day. So I know personally, coming back to the farm here after the rally, I took the time to write all the people that we met with and kind of further express my views. I'd taken a lot of notes throughout the day that I was able to forward to different organizations, particular senators or assemblymen or assemblywomen who wanted more information from us or from an organization that I felt like I could put them in touch with. So I think for me, those were some kind of concrete touch-base next steps with these specific senators, and then just continuing to be involved, continuing to stay up on what was happening through American Farmland Trust, participating in the call-in that they're putting on tomorrow, and then talking to people like you. I think, coming from a cooking background and as a consumer who's always felt like, man, I'm going to do my part to support the local food movement by buying, food from the farmers market or eating at restaurants that serve locally produced foods. I feel like, I'm good at that, and my next step is to figure out how do I get involved politically? How can I influence policy, budget decisions, and how do I open that world up to a bigger group of people? I mean, attending a rally like this was definitely a first-time thing for me, and I have to say that American Farmland Trust made it really easy. Setting up the bus, they provided a wonderful lunch. Sodexo, a company not totally known for their use of local foods.
No, they're pretty good.
But yeah, it's like growing movement in that company. They do all the food service at the Capitol, and they put on a sustainable lunch for us, highlighting foods from different New York State farms.
Wow.
And so the rally, we were able also to reach out to stuff outside of the legislature, the cafeteria center, the chefs who are making those buying decisions right there at our Capitol. I feel like all those little things, are what kind of take this from a trend and move it more towards a movement, help it gain more ground and push forward.
Well, that brings me to my next question, probably for David. But what would your advice be for a rally builder in another state to talk with other legislators about these pressing issues?
Yeah, how do you open a rally? I mean, that is hard because that has a certain, revolutionary, background to it. So, how do you tap into that sense of collective energy?
Well, it's a great question. One thing I would point out is that a lot of our participants at this event were people like Erin, many of whom had never been at the state capitol before for an event like this. And I think many of them, felt like they were taking a day for their food. They're taking a day. This is their volunteer work. And I think people are starting to recognize that we can make changes in our personal lives that are powerful, but there is incredible strength in having a unified political voice. And so this is actually a tremendous time to take action in New York State politics. This is an election year. Right. Every one of our state senators, state assembly members, our governor, they're all going to be up for election this year. And then starting next winter, we're going to have a new governor and a new legislature. And so they're going to be looking to their constituents for their priorities.
Maybe
And
you guys could do a vigilante, like when Patterson vacates his office, you could like turn it into a goat dairy or something, and then when the new guys are like, "Hey, listen, we're here. You have to grandfather us in."
And now, I'm sorry, continue.
Well, you can take it over, Heather, from there.
Well, I was going to ask, this rally obviously, got some media attention. It got some attention definitely by the people up in the Capitol. Do you think that there's people coming from the other ends of the food world, maybe more like the bigger, badder guys that are coming to now try and, retaliate against what you guys did at your rally?
I think there's a number of challenges that we face politically, not the least of which, again, is our really difficult state fiscal situation. We face a $9 billion state shortfall this year, and that is a real challenge for us. I think one of our biggest problems is that, there hasn't always been a unified voice behind some of these programs. So programs that help farmers protect their land, people always haven't recognized the importance of making those types of investments, and that's why, politicians, propose to cut funding for programs like that by 50%. So I think the fiscal situation is going to be a very big challenge for us going forward. I think the more that we can demonstrate that all New Yorkers care about farms and care about their food, the stronger we'll be, and the more we can overcome some of those obstacles that are looming ahead of us.
Well, to the answer to that question, it's funny you say that big looming question. You know which party, which group of businesses in New York have the power to swing the pendulum in the other direction? Bodegas.
That's true.
They all care about great food. They'll know the taste difference and want to see it. It's a couple dollars more, but it's special. I bet there could be a local something stand in every bodega in New York. I mean, think about how much stuff they go through.
That's a good suggestion.
The salesmen are going to have, whoever convinces them of that will have to speak Spanish or other languages too.
But that's definitely an idea. Now, how would you say is the best way that you guys get your word out on, the rally and this pick up the phone movement? I mean, technology is a wonderful thing. I mean, TechServe is the one, sponsoring us today. And I know that most recently I've heard of these new iPhone applications that's called Hello Washington, where you literally, put your hand on your iPhone and you're able to look up the bills and, press another button and then you're automatically emailing that congressman. So what do you guys find to be the best way to get the word out?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that you brought so many people to a single place at a single time, on
a Monday.
On a random date, kind of, in the future. Like, how, what type of marketing did you find, surprisingly successful or very successful?
Well, Erin, do you want to talk about that at all in terms of just outreach and how you think how we can connect with more people? Because again, I think this was an important step forward, but I don't see the No Farms, No Food rally from last week as kind of the end game. Mm-hmm. I think that was an important step in a positive direction, but we've got a lot more work to do. So I'm really interested in people's ideas about how we can, gain more of that traction, because there's a lot of voices that we would like to reach. And if we're going to be successful in the future, we've got to look at all the ways, including a lot of the technologies you're mentioning, to do it.
No, that definitely makes sense. And Erin, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say that, from an outsider's perspective, it really seemed like American Farmland Trust had a really strong team of people, and everybody was, taking the time to reach out to their personal resources, and I think that was another thing that swayed. There was a lot of, personal calls and, relationships that have been built up over time, and that they were then able to kind of tap into a lot of that support. So it's exciting to think about all the new people, all the people like me who came up to the rally for the first time and are now part of that network, and now all of those people can reach out to, their new friends and, kind of building the 6 degrees of separation, one person at a time, I think is a big part of it.
And this is a community, and something that you mentioned a little bit earlier. You were kind of talking about consumption in a way, but and the fact that you're so involved with the farmers, and you're buying from farmers, or you're at least trying to make sure you always know where your food comes from. Something that Carla Petrini said a couple of weeks back in Georgia was that when you're at that point of making sure you know where your food is coming from, at that point you're really a co-producer as opposed to just a consumer, someone that's just consuming. Consumption really comes from a much larger, feel.
Well, another thing I like that Carlos says is the sustainable food movement has to stop chastising itself for being too expensive. I think it should challenge itself to develop like-minded or efficient distribution systems and A to Z planning, so that it can come closer. But it shouldn't, make an argument against itself before it even really starts, you know? And I'd make the argument that it's surprisingly not that much more expensive than commodity foods in some respects. I mean, meat and dairy more so than produce. Produce, the guy, Tom Strumolo from Green Market, and Bob Lewis of the Ag and Markets division said that local produce is often cheaper than their commodity alternative. So, it makes it even more egregious that there be a disconnect between upstate and the big city. So, well, thanks, guys. You are awesome guests. Heather, I would advise you to have these two cats on more often because they always have something to say.
That's why I call them. But definitely do participate tomorrow with the Pick Up the Phone. Try and reach out to Senator Sampson and Assemblyman Silver and, just speak your voice and let them know that we need to restore the Environmental Protection Fund. It's important to protect farmlands and protect the water quality here.
And we got to get Erin more speaking engagements. She's getting pretty good.
Oh, thanks, Patrick.
I remember you had you only said 9 things when I first met you all those years ago. And ironically, we bumped into each other again in front of Savoy.
Oh, around Prince
She was
Street.
making deliveries for Flying Pigs, and I was making deliveries for Saxelby Cheesemongers.
Oh, what do you know? And that's how your relationship started, right? Making
deliveries.
Hey, you got to get the food from the farmer to the fork.
Even before that in Ann Arbor. So
oh,
it goes
wow.
way back.
Erin, you are vintage heritage.
I think the Clinton was president or something.
Well, David and Erin, thank you so much again.
Thank you, guys.
Stay tuned to what American Farmland Trust is doing because it's really great and it's really important. So we thank TechServe again for sponsoring today's show. The Heritage Farm Report live every Wednesday at 5. We'll be back next week with some really awesome guests. That's going to be a little bit of a surprise, but let's just think DC. And we'll be back with my co-host, Jack Inslee.
I can't wait.
All right.
All right, thanks, guys.
She didn't beg, oh not enough. She didn't stay.